Hey everybody, this is Perch. This sounds like a good question. It's a short question, and I'm kind of curious to get your take on it because I don't think it's as simple as maybe people make it out to be. So it says, "Dear Percherino, um, Percherino. I haven't heard that one in a little while actually. But Dear Percherino, I noticed that in a lot of videos, yours included, but also Sasha's and even Omar's, there are a lot of questions or topics, because I think you're the only one who does questions. You're damn right. Actually, I don't know if that's true or not. You're the only one who does questions about LGBTQ or social topics in comics. I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask you a question about what you think about it or if it's appropriate or any of that stuff. My question is, why are there so many questions? Meaning, comics are filled with superheroes, multiverse adventures, science fiction, all kinds of different elements. Why is it that so much of the online discourse and comments and questions and discussion and news stories are all based around LGBTQ topics? And I'm saying this from a perspective of pro or con. You know, there's a lot of videos and people complaining about the woke lifestyle, woke's in quotes there, but you have an equal number of articles promoting it. Bleeding Cool is always talking about queer anthologies, and so is The Beat and AIPT and others. One of the more puzzling things about comics right now, by the way, I think this is a really good point, is that several people on Twitter will regularly talk about how YouTubers are obsessed with woke culture, but then will frequently ask the same questions in interviews, like AIPT and The Beat, which often bring up, does this comic have any queer characters? Your letterer is transgender, etc., etc. So why is anyone talking about this? Curious to get your thoughts. I think it's a good question, and it's actually one for us to stop for a second, pause, take a step back, and think about this. Because the reality is, and you would never know it if you just listened to videos, if you just read blogs, if you were just on social media, you would never know this is true. But the reality is, the vast amount of American comics, Western comics, feature fairly vanilla, middle of the road, straight, often white people. It is the majority. You would think from listening online and listening to critics and everything else that every comic has got the big old, gay parade of all kinds of, non-white people of color, autistic, transgender heroes running around fighting, people that look like Trump. That's kind of the assumption you would get. But if you go to a comic shop, and if the store owner there will let you thumb through all the comics or just look at everything that came out this week. And a good way to do this is to go to I think it's Fresh Comics. It's not a pirate site, but it's Fresh Comics. It's like, here are the comics that are coming out this week, and there's just a list, and they've got the covers there, and you just look at the list. You should do this because what you're going to notice is that you're like, oh yeah, there's that comic that was in that video, and here's another Pride issue, and here's this and that. But you're going to be like, oh, there's like 80, 100, 150 other comics that just look like comics, just kind of vanilla comics. All different genres, but that's kind of how they are. And it's true. If you look at DC's lineup or Marvel's lineup in any given week, what you will find is that the majority of comics are pretty much, again, exactly what you would expect. I'll try this as an example for you. So let's see here. We're going to look at, the comics that are out at the recording of this video. And it's the week of 9/11, okay? And I'm just going to read them to you, all right? Here's the DC comics, and I want you to tell me how many of them are infused with the gay, let's say, all right? From the DC vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives, number 3, okay? And by the way, absolutely in some of these comics. It's not the main part of the comic, but it's a subplot or whatever else, fine. But just at a high level, listen to this. Looney Tunes 280, Primer number 3, Absolute Power Task Force 7 number 6, Batman Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age number 4, Batman 89 Echoes number 4, Batman and Robin 13, DC versus Vampires World War V number 2, Green Lantern 15, Shazam number 15, The Penguin number 12, and Batman Justice Buster number 15. Now, obviously, there's stuff in all of these comics, but how many of those are woke? If you actually go through and you read all these comics, you will discover that I think there's maybe 2 of these comics feature any kind of LGBTQ theme at all. And the majority are just kind of telling a story about the comic. Now let's check out Marvel for a second, because you're like, it's cheating. Marvel's the one that's super woke. Okay, Marvel gives us The Amazing Spider-Man 57, Blood Hunters number 2, Captain America number 13, Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider number 5, Spider-Man Reign 2 number 3, Star Wars Inquisitors number 3, Star Wars number 50, Ultimate Black Panther number 8, Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 9, Venom Separation Anxiety number 5, Venom 37, Venom War Carnage number 2, Venom War Wolverine number 1, Venomverse Reborn number 4. There's definitely too many Venom books. Avengers Assemble number 1, Fantastic Four 25, Uncanny X-Men number 2, and Wolverine number 1. Once again, you may have a lot of perspective of woke writers or woke comics, but the majority of those also do not have, again, it's just barely vanilla characters. I can go down the list with Image and others, but the point taken is this. If you look at the critics and the criticism about comics and the amount of questions, hell, the amount of emails I get, there is at least 2 to 3 a day asking about gay topics. And some are negative, like, why is there so much gay? And some are positive, like, hey, why don't we have more gay? Like, I don't know, it doesn't say things like that. But anyway, there's an obsession about LGBTQ and woke in comics that do not even really reflect the totality of comics that are coming out. Now, you may do the analysis a different way and say, hey, of the comics that are coming out, 25% of them have LGBTQ themes, and then in the American population, 5% of people are identifying as LGBTQ. I don't know these numbers. I'm just, for example, and you're like, well, comics is skewing higher than real life. And that definitely may be true. But still, the thing that's skewing even higher than that are the amount of videos, comments, this is woke, that's woke, etc. There's just way more. Again, if you were not reading comics and you're just paying attention to both YouTube and social media and comic news sites, and again, it's really important to stress here, it's not just people bashing those themes or complaining about them or saying comics are too woke. It's the other way around too. If you read some of the interviews from AIPT, and I've read a couple recently, it's amazing how often in the interview that either somebody sends in a question that they're asking, or the interviewer themselves asks a question. They're like, "Tell us more about how Betsy Braddock is gay and her relationship with Rachel Summers." And it's like, like with Jeff Thorne's new X-Force book, those 2 characters are in there. You would barely know that those 2 are a couple in the comic. It's not a big theme of the comic. Now, maybe he makes it more later, maybe he doesn't, who knows? But it's not, even if you're very generous and say they're going to, be in a relationship and we're going to constantly nod to it, still the premise of X-Force is this, ball with cracks in it, and the ball is identifying where there's problems. I apologize, Jeff. We need to have you on to talk about your book, but Forge is going to go try and solve these mysteries, etc. The comic is not about a gay relationship with Rachel Betty, not by a mile. Did I say Betty or Betsy? I think it's Betty. Rachel Betty, old Bets. Anyway, it really doesn't factor into it. And yet, when I'm reading kind of some of these blogs, some of these reviews, some of these write-ups, it's like that is a quarter of the things people are talking about in this book, even though it doesn't really, like one issue, they're just in the comic. They're not even holding hands, nothing. You wouldn't even know they were in a relationship. They're just hanging out based on the how the characters are written. Rachel could be in a relationship with Forge, for all we know. It doesn't, like none of it matters. And yet people are seeing anyway. So why is this? Why such a obsession? The only thing I can give you is that comic books for a long time were kind of counterculture, and they appealed to a subset of, people who are into entertainment, everything else. And so there's a crossover, like a Venn diagram. There's an overlap there with LGBTQ and transgender and the fascination with themes like that. Again, both positive and negative. And it's also kind of feeds itself. So once you get into the habit of talking about the woke and looking for the woke and being all in on the woke, then suddenly it seems more woke. And by the way, there are people, for all I know, there will be people who will listen to this video and they will do a reaction, probably not for this one, but it's never clear to me why people pick the things they pick. And you're like, what, is he crazy? Oh, there's Perch again, defending comics, being an industry shill, talking about how the comics aren't even woke. And that's not my point here. Again, whether it's woke or not is really, you get to decide. It's your pick. It's kind of how you want to interpret or see the comic. In many cases, there's definitely some, like when they had MODOK all, dressed up like Trump, then sure, okay, definitely it's playing to a political base. Or, when they did the unsolicited opinions of Israel, shouting in that was an issue of Angela, right? I mean, there's definitely stuff in there. Don't get me wrong, but the percentage of quote unquote woke material in comics is less than the commentary. Both the people in favor of it, both people against it. I maintain, by the way, that in the Krakoa era, you had Leah Williams doing that X Factor book. I think her own fan base killed it. Meaning she was trying to set up a bunch of things with characters and, the mysteries and other stuff that's going on. And she definitely played to a lot of, LGBTQ themes in the book. But it became all that the fans of the book on social media talked about. And so anyone who wasn't into that was turned off of the book before they even opened it up. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever you want to call it, there's just not enough of a base of fans of LGBTQ content in comics to sustain a big two comic. We've seen this proven out over and over and over and over again. You can deny it, but there's a reason why we do not have a bunch of, top selling LGBTQ books out there. There is a reason why Captain Marvel has not, revealed she's a lesbian and still tried to sell that comic. There's reasons behind that. The top selling books still are and remain fairly vanilla. And by the way, don't hate me. That's the sales. That's what goes on. Marvel can do all kinds of things to piss us off in all kinds of different ways. You can have Spider-Man getting cucked over by Paul, and the whole Mary Jane thing, and kind of this book, and all the things that are shitty, the continued denial and erasure of that marriage. People hate it. But do you notice it's one of Marvel's top-selling books? And they don't have a comic of like Spider-Man and fights the transgender army, fights with, I guess, the transgender army against a bunch of Trump supporters. They don't do that in that comic. They tend to shy away. The stuff where you see a lot of these themes that play to the niche are they're in the niche books. And there's a reason for that. And so, by the way, and again, it's just fact, Marvel editors, Marvel writers, whatever, or DC, they can talk all they want about, hey, we're pride friendly and everything else. But guess what? The Pride book comes out once a year. I mean, there's certainly other books come out. They do not spend money, in many cases, to market it. They tend to ignore a lot of the book and what it does and everything else. And If they really stood by their values, why wouldn't they put the top writer, top artist, top creative team, market it to the heavens? Why wouldn't they do that? They don't do that because they know it's a niche book. They know it plays to a niche audience. And so again, the comic publishers know what's up. They're putting out these books. But the fans, again, both pro and con, seem to struggle with this. So I don't know. There's something in there. Curious to get your take. What's your answer to this mail? You may have a different one. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.